daughters and, just athletes in general, daughters that are in any sport, whether it's swimming or whatever. And your story resonates because this is becoming more and more prevalent. This is something that we didn't think was going to happen. And then all of a sudden this is happening, and it happened to you. And when they passed that trophy, they gave that trophy to Leah and not to you. And they did it for PR purposes. As a mother, my blood, I think about it now, my blood is boiling. I just get so angry about it because of the time and the money and the commitment and the passion that, that I know that my daughter puts into swimming. And I know you obviously did that as well. And just taking that away from you was just so, it's unbelievable what we're allowing to happen. I think my first question to you would be, what about your other teammates? Because we're seeing what you're doing, because you're basically the face now of all of this. But what about your other teammates? What about the parents? Like, I've not heard, like, what did they do? What were they doing? Where is everybody else?
This is something I constantly ask myself. Speaking for my team at the University of Kentucky, there was about 40 girls on our team. So it's a pretty big team. It's like your own little sorority, really. Of those 40 girls, 38 feel the exact same way I do. The overwhelming majority. They either feel scared to talk about it, they don't want it to affect their life because they see how it's affected mine and how my life plans have been totally rerouted. They don't feel as if they have this personal story, so they don't feel qualified to talk about it. There's a lot that goes into it. So when I speak, when I do these interviews, when I get in front of state legislature and share my experience, I'm speaking for so much more than just myself. I know it feels as if I've been this lone voice, this lone face person fighting for this, but I'm not, and I know that. So it's hard. In regards to the parents, this is something that kind of frustrated me at the beginning. Of course, we were adults. We're 18 to 22 years old, but it still felt like this betrayal, whether that be from our coaches, the NCAA, parents, people with political power. It felt as if in the moment at our national championships last year, anyone who was supposed to be protecting us just simply wasn't. And that was a hard realization. And that's when it kind of hit me that if we as female athletes weren't willing to stick up for ourselves, how could we expect anyone to stick up for us? I will say, of course, my parents are very supportive of me. My dad, he was a former NFL football player, so he's a pretty big guy, right? And we're here from Tennessee, a pretty big Southern guy, which is even scarier. And when I told him I was sharing a locker room with Thomas, that was something I'll never forget. He told me that he's coming down there and he's going to handle it himself, to which I had to say, Dad, we already have one man in the locker room. We don't need another. But yeah, we need more parents to go to school board meetings. We need more parents to be willing to defend their daughters and teach their sons masculinity. That's a big piece of it too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
What was that like, being in the locker room? I mean, because now there's all the rumors about this being kind of a fetish of Leah Thomas's.
Totally.
And I mean, how did, especially with 38 women not wanting that at all, how did you manage the situation? What was that like?
First of all, I'll set the scene. We had no idea we would be sharing a locker room with Leah. We were not forewarned. No one told us. No one asked for our consent. We did not give our consent. And so going into that locker room, being a place where I think we can all acknowledge locker rooms in general are a bit uncomfortable, but growing up a swimmer, you almost become comfortable being vulnerable in that environment. You're all used to it. These suits you put on, and I'm sure your daughter knows they're teeny tiny. It takes about 15 minutes to put these suits on, 15 minutes of which you're fully exposed. But this locker room, it's also a place of buzzing and chatter. You get to see your friends from all over the country who you haven't seen all year. But I can't even tell you the silence when I had my back turned. I was, undressing, putting my suit on, and all of a sudden the room got silent. And so it was kind of bizarre. So I turn around, a 6'4", 22-year-old male, fully intact with an exposing male genitalia, drops his pants, starts undressing. It felt this subconscious, inherent, innate need to cover yourself immediately. And that was consistent across every girl in the room. And so I immediately left the locker room and I went up to one of the officials on the pool deck and I said, how did this happen? I want to know what the rules are that allowed this to happen. And he looked at me and he said, word for word, oh, we actually got around this by making the locker rooms unisex. And so then I'm thinking, okay, unisex. Any man could have walked into that locker room. Any man, not just a self-identifying female, a coach, an official, anyone. And we weren't bare minimum told about this. And that's when I was really like, we are catering to the radical minority at the expense of us as women. We were the collateral damage in this process and no one was acknowledging that.
Okay, so one of the things I find really interesting is that some of these athletes, I should probably say ex-athletes because they're no longer in their sport, but like the Brittany Griners and the Meg Rapinos of the world are willing to die on this hill. It's like, and I would imagine some of it has to do with the fact that they're in the LGBT community themselves, but I just don't understand how, they cannot see the connect between like this. Biological women are being severely affected by this. And so this is, I'm sure there are some people in the LGBT community that are against this because we've seen
Absolutely.
it, like the Caitlyn Jenners of the world. But the fact that they were athletes, they've gone through this, they've done the work, and then to see women being, just, maybe abused is not the word, but just broken.
Undermined.
Right.
Totally.
Yeah. And
it's interesting because, look, and I like how you mentioned ex-athletes, first of all, because Billie Jean King, Megan Rapinoe, Brittany Griner, Sue Bird, the other 36 or so athletes that signed on to this letter that Megan Rapinoe created, these athletes are done playing sports or they're at the end of their career. They have nothing to lose, but I can guarantee you if Megan Rapinoe was competing for a spot on that U.S. women's national soccer team and lost out to a male,
oh my gosh,
it would be the end of the world. And if you've ever seen Megan Rapinoe play, she's an aggressive player. She's really tough. I would be really scared of Megan Rapinoe if a man took her spot. But as I mentioned, Billie Jean King, this is a woman who we essentially have to accredit Title IX for. She's someone who fought relentlessly to get women equal opportunities in sports, and now she's totally going the opposite way and actively fighting for men to take away those opportunities for women. It's crazy. I feel as if this movement happened so quickly. Again, maybe I was naive to how long this has really been going on, and I understand now that I definitely was. But this happened so quick, and we've seen the political sphere even totally flip. I know we talked about the feminist movement, but the left was once a party that embraced women and fought for their sex-based protections, and now we're seeing that totally flipped. The feminist movement, first of all, I would have never considered myself a feminist previously, but now I do in a sense. I consider myself a modern-day feminist, which is someone who just understands that women deserve respect and we deserve equal opportunities. We shouldn't have to lose out on that to men.
Well, that makes me think back to something that you said earlier about how, the vast majority of your teammates were aligned with your thinking about this whole thing. But that means that there were a couple that weren't. And like, what was wrong with them? Like, I don't understand who is supporting men infiltrating their own sport. How could they see that differently? I don't understand that thinking at all.
I don't either. Of course, women especially, they tend to be more agreeable. They tend to not want to step on toes. They want to show sympathy. They want to be compassionate, which of course, in theory, those are all great things. But when we're allowing our rights to be infringed on, that's not inclusive. That's exclusive.
Right.
It's not kind or welcoming or tolerant or accepting or any of those words they love to use to ask a girl to get undressed in front of a man. That's not what those things are. And so they do it in the guise of being, again, loving, accepting, inclusive. That's, of course, the big one that everyone loves to push, but it's not inclusive. And that's what people need to realize. By Leah Thomas competing in our sports, at our NCAA championships, an argument I hear all the time is it's not really happening. Okay, let's look at Leah Thomas, one person. He displaced 14,000 other D1 swimmers. It's one person affecting a slew of others, and that's what this issue is about.
And
Yeah.
but that cyclist too, that it just happened.
Oh
Right.
my
Cycling.
gosh.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
And I've been following this guy, Austin, for a really long time. He is someone who recently caused another female cyclist. Her name is Hannah Arnsman. She's been reaching out to me. She just quit her sport because of this guy.
oh my gosh.
And so he's someone I've been following for a long time, and now seeing him win this big tournament, taking $35,000 in prize money home that rightfully belonged to a woman, is heartbreaking.
Yeah,
It feels
it's-
as if I've been punched in the gut seeing
It's
these
disgusting.
videos.
It's absolutely disgusting. There were people that would, we talk about your story a lot on our podcast and our daily show, and people would say stuff like, you know what, they all should have just not participated. They should have banded together and just not participated that day. And I probably was one of the few people that was like, well, you don't get it, because these girls.
No.
They practice and practice. I mean, their whole lives they practice. So the last thing they want to do is just sit down, like take a seat for a dude.
Totally.
Like they don't want to do that. So
Totally.
I would get so protective when they would say stuff like that, because I have a girl who swims, and I'm like, the
Right.
last thing I know she would want to do is be like, well, okay, let's all just like sit back and then just not
Right.
swim today.
Absolutely.
So what do you say? Like, how else would, if this happens again, and it will happen again, not if, but when it happens again, what should women do? What should these athletes do in these situations?
This is hard because that's constantly something I see too, is people saying you should have just not swam. Okay.
Right.
In theory, boycotts are great. Historically, they've proven to work, but let's be realistic. First and foremost, it's impossible to get everyone on the same page and everyone sit down. That's just, that would not happen. Again, especially at the level we were competing at. This was my last swim meet ever. This was my last race ever. I had worked
Right.
my entire life, 18 years of my life, to get to that point. And you want to ask me and my teammates to not compete, not swim my last race? I'm sorry. Yes, that sounds great, but no. We should not have to compromise anything. There's nothing we should compromise. So this argument, it's hard. I think my response to what needs to be done in the future when this happens, and again, it is a when, it's not an if, it already is happening all over the country at a rampant rate, is to just be more vocal about it, to express how this makes you feel and not apologize for it. That's something I look back at how I really responded at the beginning of all of this last year. And I was so apologetic for feeling the way I felt. And I regret that so badly. But I felt as if I needed to come out and say, I'm sorry for feeling this way, but we cannot have that. We cannot apologize. We cannot feel as if we need to give something up to share how we feel, because we don't. We need parents, we need girls, we need men even, to ruffle feathers and step on toes. That's what it's going to take. Because we didn't want to do that, that's how we've gotten here. We need to do that. It is so, so important to have conversations. Athletes who are being recruited, I think it's crucial to even ask the question to coaches. Mm-hmm. How would you respond if a male wanted to join this team?
It's a great point.
Different things like that. Being comfortable talking about this is the first step to making a change.
I thought about that
Yeah. And
a college recruiting standpoint, if that was an angle in, like when parents are, fighting for their kids to get on teams in college, to compete at the highest possible level, do they have any leeway where they can say, I'm going to choose a different school based on your, acceptance and tolerance of this whole allowing men to play? But doesn't it come from the NCAA and not actually from the individual colleges?
Yeah, it does. So now it's kind of interesting because of all the different state legislature that's being passed. So let's say, I think there's 15 states thus far that have protected women. There's 22 altogether, states that have protected at least K through 12. But I think there's 15 states that have protected the collegiate level as well.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yes, so actually yesterday I was in Texas testifying for protecting the collegiate level, which I'm confident will pass through. And so Texas will soon be a state, like the University of Texas in Austin. A male won't be able to compete on a collegiate team there. So refers back to state legislature. Of course, we have the Biden administration who's doing work to rewrite Title IX,
Right.
which would have an effect on everything. They are now actively, Title IX is, of course, supposed to stop discrimination on the basis of sex. They now are rewriting it to where it stops discrimination on the basis of gender identity. So what this means is men could join sororities, men could live in dorm rooms with women, and you could do nothing about it.
Wow.
Men would have full access to changing rooms, restrooms, all of the things. Men could take academic and athletic scholarships away from women. In this new rewrite, it's actually sexual harassment if you misgender a trans individual.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's-
not
I
sexual
know.
harassment for them to be parading around our locker room exposing opposite genitalia, but if you misgender them, you're guilty.
Wow.
It's
Yeah.
just, it's unbelievable. It's just
Yeah.
crazy. I feel like what you have done though is you've emboldened a lot of women, because we have a lot of people that will, just, it has nothing to do with even this gender stuff. It's just everything else. We have a lot of conservatives that have written us over the past 14 years since we've been doing this, and they're like, I'm afraid to speak out, because conservatives in general are really, they are too agreeable, and they're also very polite. We're just a polite group of people,
Totally.
right? And so I think a lot of people on our side are just not willing to fight back, and so you've emboldened so many women and men too to say what they feel about this stuff, because I'm seeing it more and more, like in my social feeds and stuff like that. It's definitely a movement that's happening.
Totally.
Because people are just fed up with this, because the bottom line is we have reality on our side. We have facts and reality, and these people are
Totally.
ignoring reality, and that is insane.
Absolutely. And I think the majority of people, again, across the board, look, do what you want in your free time.
Right.
If that is something that you want to do, by all means, that is your life. Don't expect me to necessarily be willing to lie. That's not what's going to happen. And that's what they're asking us to do, is to give
Precisely.
up the truth, give up common sense, give up reasoning and data and science and all of the things. And that's like a George Orwell dystopian novel that we're living in. When you're asking us to say 2 + 2 is 5, no.
The way that I always refer to it is that they are asking us to participate in their delusions. And
Absolutely.
we're not trying to stop them from living their lives as they wish, but when you ask me to sign on, that's a whole different ballgame.
Absolutely. And everyone is entitled to their rights. Everyone should be able to play sports regardless of who you are.
Totally.
It's just about you play where is fair and where is safe. I don't know what's controversial about that.
Well,
Do you think that? I'm sorry.
that I wanted to ask. It's two parts, because I wanted to ask for an update about the whole assault that you faced at the Turning Point USA event in California. I wanted to get an update because I know you were hopping mad with good reason, and you were talking about pressing charges, and I wanted to get an update on that. But I also wanted to find out, because you mentioned earlier that this whole, speaking out about this has changed the trajectory of your life. It's one reason that other women haven't spoken out, because they are not ready to make that kind of change. What would you be doing right now if not for this entire thing? What did you hope to do?
It would have been very easy for me to simply ride off into the sunset with my 6'4" British husband, who now has a southern twang in his accent. I was prepared to go to dental school. I graduated with a degree in human health sciences and health law. I scored in the top percentile on the dental admissions test. I was geared up and ready to go. And this all happened, and I realized I can't do that yet. I feel so called to this. I feel so passionate about this. And I prayed about this for a really long time. God, where do I need to be? Just put me where I'm needed, and I'll do it. But I trust his plan. My faith is what's kept me so grounded, really, this past year. So secure with myself enough to take the arrows that I get. And so I put off dental school for a while, and now I reapplied thinking this time this year I could go. But now I still just don't feel as if there are enough girls, women who are my age, who are talking about this. And so I'm still just unsure what that looks like for me right now. But the blessing is they're both good options, and dental school will always be there. It really will. But the relevance and the importance behind this It might not always be there, and someone has to fight it.
Right.
In regards to the San Francisco stuff, oh my goodness, that was the most mind-blowing, crazy, unhinged experience ever. But of course, I was essentially ambushed. I was held hostage for 3+ hours, held for ransom. They demanded money from me if I wanted to make it home safely. They said I had to pay them.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so that's what that looked like.
Wow.
Again, for hours, they held me in this room, demanding if I wanted to make it home safely. Yeah. Right, exactly. And so after all of this, the administration released a statement saying they were so proud of their students who did this to me. They acted in such a brave manner. Word for word, they said this. They said they had to listen to someone who spread so much violence. Me. That's me.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I cannot.
And once the administration did that, we can't allow this to continue. We have to hit them where it hurts. We have to pursue legal action. And of course, they make it a burden because it's a financial investment. There's a lot of time that goes into it. It's not fun, of course, to pursue litigation, but that's what is necessary for schools, universities, institutions, organizations, companies. They cannot keep doing this and expect no consequences.
So did you? I mean, have the perpetrators been charged? Are there going to be consequences?
I have officially announced I'm pressing charges. The police naturally have been hard to get in contact with. So that is in process. There will be litigation. Again, just to ensure this doesn't happen to someone else. I was simply there giving a speech on my experience competing against a man and why it's harmful for women to have to go through that.
The universities, man.
Yeah, right? I'm
I know.
shutting down speech in so many ways.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's crazy. It's absolute craziness. Yeah. So that's one of the, so you've been derailed. You've been derailed from dental school, which, you're doing, now you have this pack, like you have a pack, it's kind of like you were made for such a time as this, Riley, right? Like, I mean, at least from the outside in, looking in, objectively, you definitely, you have a leadership quality about you. Not to be, listen, I don't want to be condescending. I'm just old. So I look at you and I think, gosh, she's just so remarkable. Like I want my daughter, which she already does, look up to you. And I'm glad for her to have people like you to look up to because there aren't many like you. There just aren't. So it's a wonderful thing. I know you have the PAC. You can tell us a little bit about your PAC. I know to endorse it. It's for endorsing candidates that will help things like this. Correct?
Yeah, I created it last year during a lot of the midterm elections when really this issue was predominant. It was really brought to light, and candidates were forced to address it. And so my mission was, regardless of political affiliation, regardless of any other issue, I was solely looking at this one issue. Again, Republican, Democrat, didn't matter. I was willing to raise money and cut a check to any candidate who was willing to announce that they would do everything in their power to protect women's sports. Of course, this only went one way. There was only Republicans who did this.
Insane.
But that's what I was able to do. Which was important to me. It was important to honor, in a sense, these people who were willing to fight for us.
Yeah. And then now there's the Women's Bill of Rights, which is, I can't even believe we have to have that. No. It's like, what is even going on?
It's crazy. Yeah. I know. So the Women's Bill of Rights, that's a bill that I have been working alongside the Independent Women's Forum on. Mm-hmm. We've introduced it in 4 states, Mississippi, Tennessee, Oklahoma, and Kansas. It has officially passed in Kansas. It is on the way to doing so in the next few weeks in both Oklahoma and Tennessee as well. So really great things. This bill, it is a bill that defines the word woman. It is not...
Isn't it crazy?
It is crazy.
I can't believe we're doing this. Like we have to, and like it has to codify just a common understanding of words, like just women and like sex and gender and things like what are we doing? It's just like this. I live in bizarro world now, And
that's why I say, if you take a step back and look at what's happening in regards to the changing of the language, in regards to the silencing and the suppressing of voices that we're seeing so often, in regards to the denying objective truth, really a lot of it is deeply rooted in Marxism, and it's very
Yep.
easy to see when you take a step back and look at what's happening. We've seen how this plays out for, I mean, in history, we've seen what this does to cultures, and it's not pretty. It's not good. I don't understand why we're resorting to a place such as this, but that's exactly the direction we're going.
It's happening because that's not what schools are teaching kids anymore. And so kids
Right.
don't know that it is rooted in Marxism because they don't know what that is. But they
Yep.
have
Right.
pronouns, and they know that
Right.
they're white oppressors and the
Right.
other color oppressed. I mean, it's just so
Right.
sad. But to your point, it's not even just that what's happening in women's sports has happened so fast. It's that whole woke culture that has. We talk about this all the time. That it's the speed with which that has all happened and changed the culture so dramatically is just mind blowing.
It is.
So
Totally.
Riley, thank
It's crazy.
you so much, and thank you for putting up with all my tech issues. Thank you for giving us all of this great, updates on everything that you're doing and all of the things the ways that you're speaking out and encouraging other people to do so. We're trying to do it too. We are right behind you every
Absolutely.
step of the way, and we tell our audience every day to be loud and don't
Yep.
Absolutely.
remain inside these little chat groups, but get out and be loud. And
Yep.
a fantastic example of that.
Be like Riley.
Yeah.
Be like Riley. And listen, if there's anything that we can help you with, which I don't know what that would be, besides being our crazy, just outspoken selves.
Totally.
But if there's anything we can help you with, let us know what that is, because we are happy to do it, because I'm fighting for my daughter, and any
Absolutely.
potential grandkids that I have. And Miriam is doing the same. She's got two boys, but she understands the importance of this, because it affects
Absolutely.
it affects our boys too.
No doubt.
This crazy culture. So, anything that we can help you with, just let us know, because we're here. We're willing to help.
Well, you guys are doing it. You're getting the message out there. You're talking about this. You're creating this environment of comfort in talking about it. And so I'm so grateful for you guys. I'm so grateful for the listeners. And if that's reciprocated, if there's anything I can do for you guys, anytime, I would love to come back on. You guys are phenomenal. You're fun. You're beautiful. It just makes it all more exciting. So I'm grateful for you guys.
Riley, thank you. You are just a doll. We appreciate you coming on. You're just awesome. We appreciate you so much for all you do. Thank you.
Well, thank you guys.